Okay, we are going to try this again from the State Library this afternoon, where I am for Brisbane Writers Festival. I am actually sitting in the John Oxley Library at the moment, which is the really quiet part of the State Library, but the very kind librarians are always kind, have popped me into a apparently soundproof room so that I can chat to you all. So I am here at the Brisbane Writers Festival today. I've been talking to educators. Tomorrow I am interviewing Jessica Townsend of Nevermore, and I am also on a panel tomorrow, and then I'm on a panel on Sunday as well. So I'm having a lovely time. I saw some slam poetry last night. Tonight I'm going to the opening night party. I'm going to the UQP author party as well. My kids are texting me as I'm doing this. Anyway, I'm going to try and do 5 on Friday from here. I'm hoping that the connection is good enough, and there are like random people walking past looking at me, so I probably look like an idiot. Anyway, I've got 5 really great books to talk to you about this afternoon, so I hope this connection lasts. The first one I want to show you is Lyrebird by Laura and Philip Bunting, who, of course, are probably very well known to many of you with Mopoke and Koala and everything else that they've done. They just popped onto the children's literature scene a year or two ago, and they are just slamming out books. I do not know how they do it because they have very small children as well. Okay, Laura and Philip Bunting, I am going to tell you, I think this is my favourite. I think you've absolutely nailed it. It's about lyrebirds, obviously, and about their ability to mimic sounds in their environment. And they've taken that one step further, and they've gone with lyrebirds are liars. So it's got really, really beautiful end papers, and I do love good end paper. It's really beautifully designed, and all of their books are very designed. The narrator, the lyrebird, is speaking to the reader. Psst, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Lying is great. Yeah, you heard me. People will tell you it's wrong, but don't listen to them. And so it goes on, and it talks about how lyrebirds impersonate sounds. And then he goes on to tell a bit of a lie. Fibbing is fun and never gets you in trouble. Last week I fought off 15 foxes with my bare feathers. 15 foxes? Cracky! And then we start to see, and this is the beautiful thing about Phil and Laura Bunting books, they have these great visual literacy elements. So while I'm reading the text, my students have to be very carefully reading the illustrations, and you can see that the fox is coming up behind the lyrebird. And then he's like, see, fibbing is fun, and it never... He's right behind me, isn't he? And then so it goes on. I'm not going to tell you what happens, but some of the characters from their other books make a cameo appearance, which I love. And it's just super clever, super funny. Parts of it are wordless, and you need to get your students or your small children to read it for themselves. As I said, I think it's probably my favourite in this, what I'm calling a loose series. It's not a series, but I'm loosely calling it a series. And at the end, the dedication says, for everyone who has ever told a little lie, a porcupine, or even a big fat whopper. And it talks about out in the bush, male lyrebirds use their calls to mimic sounds. Jackie Child, bet you are happy in your happy place. Slow, mate, I am so happy. I have talked about you a lot today. People are more interested in Jackie Child these days than they are in me. True story. Okay, the second book that I want to show you is A Canter Through Art History, Dr. Seuss's Horse Museum. Get this, illustrated by Andrew Joyner. Let me tell you about this book. When it arrived for review, I was like, huh? How can there be a Dr. Seuss book? He died like a long time ago. And then I saw it was illustrated by Andrew Joyner, and I had mixed feelings. I think it would be very hard to take a half-done manuscript and finish it. Anyway, so Dr. Seuss wrote this book in somewhere in the 1950s. His wife found it 21 years after he died, and it was half done. So the roughs were done, and they looked a little like this. The publisher decided it needed to be finished, and they have commissioned Andrew Joyner to do the illustrations. As I said, I felt really conflicted when I first saw it. The end papers are exquisite, and it only gets better. Reading this book was a bit like a religious experience for me. I mean, how can Dr. Seuss just come back from the dead and have something that's, look, ardent Dr. Seuss fans will crucify me at this point, but I think this is better than anything I have ever seen come out of the world of Dr. Seuss. I love the inclusiveness of the illustrations. There's kids in wheelchairs, there's kids of all different diverse backgrounds. It's about art. Art, what's it all about? This is what art is about. Art is when an artist looks at something, like a horse, for instance, and they see something in that horse that excites them. So they do something about it. They tell you about it in any number of ways. And it goes on to talk about art, and in particular images and sculptures of horses throughout art history. And it talks about all of the different elements of art, and it has famous paintings throughout, which are of horses. And it's just amazing. It's got sculptures, talks about lines, it talks about form, it talks about colour, it talks about shape, it talks about strength. I love this image of the horse straining, and then in the next image it talks about speed, and I love this image then as a sort of a contrasting image of the horses being really speedy. It's just brilliant. It names famous artists. I do not know, like if I was Andrew Joyner, I just would have got this email that said, you know, we'd like you to illustrate Dr. Seuss's book based on his draft. I would have been like, no way, never. I mean, how can you take Dr. Seuss artwork drafts and make it your own, but still Dr. Seuss? I mean, how can you share the page with Dr. Seuss? I don't know how, but Andrew Joyner, oh my glory, if you never ever illustrate another book, you have nailed it. Like, this is just brilliant. It's got Dr. Seuss characters throughout. I really want to know, and I haven't had a chance to Google yet and find out, have they been digitally put in? Are they Dr. Seuss's images, or did Andrew Joyner draw those as well? I'm intrigued. I have read this to kindergarten to grade 6 this week. They have loved it, like blow your socks off, adored it. Probably because I adore it so much. It talks about Impressionism, it talks about Cubism, it talks about modern art, it's abstract art. I just adore it. And then it gets better. It gets better. If it is even possible, it gets better. At the end, it sort of comes into saying that one such place that you can find art is in books. The horses shown below and to the right are from books illustrated by a man who never studied drawing. His name was Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss didn't ride horses, but he looked at them carefully and he saw something in them. Can you guess what that something was? And there's Dr. Seuss illustrated into his own flipping book. I mean, it's brilliant. And then it still gets better. It's got a little bit of information about all of the artists and the works included in the book. And then it still gets even better. And then it's got notes from the publisher about how this book came about, why they felt it was important for it to come about. It's got images of the originals, and his drafts, and at the back it's also got a really great list of picture credits, which I know they had to include, but as a librarian, thank you for including the picture credits. I think that's really important. I love to see an image referenced. Look, honestly, I cannot say enough good things about that book, and it could have gone so badly wrong. Like Allen and Unwin, no, it's not an Allen and Unwin, who is it? It's Penguin Random House. You know, they've really taken a gamble on this. It could have been a disaster. I mean, Andrew Joyner is incredibly talented, but it's Dr. Seuss. Anyway, it's brilliant. Please buy it. My next book, how do I follow that? My next book is The Adventures of Anders by Gregory Mackay, and this one is an Allen Nunn one I was reading. Oh my gosh, books. I was reading the cover. Now, this is a binder. It's got 3 stories in it. The first 2 of these came out as black and white editions a couple of years ago. My eldest daughter, Pudster, was about 7 when they came out, and she adored them. Like she read them over and over and over again, to the point that I emailed Gregory Mackay and I said, oh my goodness, I don't know who you are, but my daughter just adores your books. She has reread them now. She was so excited when this came. So it is the first 2 stories, and then there's a third one being added, and now they are in colour. And so now my 8-year-old, my youngest daughter, Chickpea, is now reading them, and again, she just loves them. Some of you might have seen on my social media this morning, she was absolutely having a fit, saying, I'm not going to school and I can't eat, and you can't take this, because she wanted to finish it. So I just like to point out, I do still have your bookmark in there, Chickpea, but I had to take the book with me today so I could do this. It's a really big, thick, heavy book. It's graphic novel style. It's won lots of overseas awards, and rightly so. It asks a lot of the reader. It asks them to put the images and the text together. And basically the stories, I've read the first two, I haven't read the third one, but they're basically about Anders, Bernie and Eden, and they're best friends and they're always on adventures. It's just beautifully, seemingly simple stories, but there's a lot in them. But it's really the visuals that carry the narrative, and I just really, really love this bind-up version of it in colour. Okay, I've just been to see the Nevermore author, Jessica Townsend, talking to a lot of students, and I am interviewing her tomorrow at 10:30 or 11:30, I don't know, sometime tomorrow, at the Brisbane Writers Festival. I'm in conversation with her. It's a sold-out session, and I've been really nervous about interviewing her. So I decided I would take myself along to see her speaking to students, even though I've had her at school before and I've seen her speak to students. I have to say it's probably the best author session I've ever been to. She's obviously really nailed the presentation. It doesn't feel forced at all. Jessica is quite an introvert. I've read that online a few times, and I suspect she's got to put on her game face to get up and do an author visit. I suspect it's somewhat of a performance for her, but it doesn't feel like that. It is natural. She is witty. She was super funny, super silly. She answered questions beautifully. She ad-libbed heaps, but she had this great PowerPoint. She talked about her journey as a reader and as an author. Honestly, she just nailed it. It just was such a great presentation. Most of you will know Nevermore. It is a combination of Harry Potter and Philip Pullman and Roald Dahl's Matilda. It's a strong female quirky character who has had a pretty tough childhood. Morrigan Crow is that little female character. She is a cursed child. So I like that she turned that idea of the chosen child on its head. That we read a lot of books with chosen children in them. This is a cursed child, Morrigan, and she is doomed to die on her, I think it's 11th birthday. Wherever she goes, dreadful things happen. People die. There's earthquakes, awful weather events happen. She is saved on the eve of her birthday when she is to die by Jupiter North, who takes her to this wonderful place called Nevermore. And there's this wonderfully great big Magnificat, and the first book is about her adventures in Nevermore. It is a really fast-paced read. It is a very long book for a middle grade read. So my kids at school read this from about grade 5, but you could read this into your teen and even adult years if you love the fantasy genre or the second world fantasy genre. You will really, really enjoy this. There's 2 in the series so far, Nevermore and Wondersmith. The third one comes out 2nd of Feb 2020, and there's going to be 9 books in the series, and the movie rights have been sold. So it's been it's been sold into 39 countries. It's a fascinating story of a very young author's just rise from seemingly nowhere. She lives on the Sunshine Coast and she just popped out of nowhere, a bit like Laura and Philip Bunting. Where do these people come from? Why do I not know about them? Nevermore, incredibly popular at my school, highly recommended. And gosh, if you ever get the chance to see Jessica Townsend in real life, go and do it. And then my last book I'm going to talk about, because actually I have to go. I'm off to see Tim Costello in conversation with my friend Joy Law, and they're talking about compassion and empathy in writing. And so I have to go because I need to go and see that. But I wanted to show you, and again, many of you will know these, but I'm always surprised how many people don't know about them. This is The Babysitters Club by Raina Telgemeier. Said it, people. But it's in the graphic novel form. So she did Smile and Drama and Sisters in graphic novel form. Many of you would know those if you've got sort of 9 to 13-year-old readers. She's now done the Anne M. Martin, is that right? Yep, Anne M. Martin Babysitters Club of my childhood, and she's turned them into graphic novels. I adore graphic novels, and I cannot get enough copies of these for the library. They are always out. I myself was not allowed to read Babysitters Club when I was 18, but you know, I'm 43 now. I'm 44 in fact, maybe I'm only 42 and turning 43 on Monday. Anyway, I'm in my 40s. I'm losing track. And I wasn't allowed to read these as a teen, but I can read them now, Mum. And yeah, they're really funny. My neighbour is like a mad keen Babysitters Club fan. She's still got her original collection. She's always banging on at me about Babysitters Club and how disappointed she is that I don't deeply love them. Like, I like them, I don't deeply love them. But she sends me articles about Babysitters Club. You know, she's also in her 40s, just saying. They are a cult following, and the graphic novel versions are excellent for kids who are maybe reluctant readers or who have dyslexia. And yeah, that is my 5 on Friday, and I'm going to leave you with that because I am going to go and see Tim Costello now, and then I'm off to a party. I have been here since 8 o'clock this morning, and I'm going to be here until 10 o'clock tonight.